Welcome to Talking Live. It's great to see you here out of Starshot Studio in Times Square. Today's guest is Beth Karas. She is the former assistant DA. She also, I'm sure you know her well from Court TV and CNN. She has spent a lot of time talking about the most high-profile court cases out there. And if you want to know anything going on in the crime world, Beth Karas is your girl. In fact, that's how we know each other from working at Court TV together. Now, Beth has her own website. It's called Karas on Crime. She has a podcast of the same name, and she's also working with Dan Abrams, who has a new project called Law News, right? Which is
it's a website.
It's a website,
but also Law News is now streaming trials. It's long form with commentary.
It's incredible. I was looking at the site, and I think it's a brilliant idea because, you know, after Court TV left, I don't know how many of you out there were Court TV fans, and then a lot of us moved to Discovery ID to get our fill of the latest shows and crimes, but we would have 2-hour trials and people would watch every moment and every detail, and Beth would actually be watching from the courthouse. You were inside the courthouse.
I spent 19 years on the road, living in hotels, 6 to 9 months out of the year. I remember 1997 was the worst because I was gone for 9 months.
Now, what case were you working on for that?
It wasn't just one. In 97, I think I was in Michigan on some cases. It might have been the civil trial of Jenny Jones.
Oh, okay.
By the way, do you remember that? The shooting, it was two guests who taped an episode of Jenny Jones, and then one killed the other one a few days later because he didn't want a man coming out as his secret admirer on the show.
And they changed the way they handled talk show guests after that.
Because
so it was a talk show murder, right?
Telepictures, Paramount, Jenny Jones were sued. And of the deceased, Scott Amador, didn't get the $25 million or whatever the jury verdict was. But that case is kind of off the radar, right? Jonathan Schmitz was the shooter. He went to trial. He was convicted of murder. It was reversed because of an error in jury selection. He had a new trial. He was convicted again. And then the civil trial with Jenny Jones and Telepictures and Paramount. Well, he got 20 plus years in prison, and he's up for parole this summer.
Wow.
So, you know, I don't know how many people are following the case now, but he could get out this summer. It's his first time before the parole board.
Now, do you make assessments in your mind? And I realize that you're not a therapist, so your job isn't to determine.
That's your job.
That's my job. Your job isn't to determine whether somebody should get out or not. But do you think after 20 years, maybe he served his time and learned his lesson?
You know, it is the case for some. It's a little more than 20 years for him. It is the case for some that the first time up, they deserve to be paroled. Not everyone. I don't know his record in prison. I don't know if he has a flawless record. Some people do, but many don't. And I don't know if he's expressing remorse and is willing to say how sorry he is for having killed Scott Amador. So I can't really assess it. I mean, there are too many factors, and parole boards are different. And in Michigan, though, they do like cameras in there. Because I was looking at states that allow cameras in parole hearings. Not all states do. New York doesn't, for example.
We need to change that, New York.
I know.
Put the cameras in. They're curious.
In Connecticut, I think they have the camera like locked down, and you could just watch them. They put them online.
Oh.
So it's so different state to state.
I wonder what goes into making that decision, whether, you know, cameras can document versus cameras can't document. Do they base it on research or just...
It's their own rules, and every state's a little different. I mean, New York's one of the only states in the country that doesn't allow a camera, by the way, at the trial level, right? They do.
I think so.
They do at arraignments and hearings, but if a witness is testifying or a jury's in the courtroom, you can't have a camera. It's actually an act of the legislature making it a misdemeanor to put a camera in the courtroom. So New York's unique. Usually it's a rule of the court, and most states allow cameras at some level. Department of Corrections are different state to state. They have their own rules.
And I guess it's political as well.
Sure.
You know, politics always enter. Now, one of the things that always fascinated me, because I remember that Jenny Jones case, because Jenny Jones I think she left TV after that incident, or it was very scarring
She may have, yeah. I mean, I don't think her show was on by the time of the trial. I don't think her show was on. I don't think it was on.
Well, Jenny Jones, if you're out there, please contact me, because I would love to interview you, because I was a huge fan in the day, and I'm just curious to know what you're doing.
She's got a website, and she's cooking. And
she's cooking?
I looked her up. But
that's one thing you will not see me do. Ever. Like, I might reinvent myself.
I discovered cooking later in life. Once I was like not on the road anymore and I was home, or it's like, there's so much for me. It's really creative.
My kids, when I cook for them, they're like, "Are you trying to kill me?" It's like, no. But, you know, if I'm ever accused of that, maybe you could protect me. So tell me more about KarasOnCrime.com.
So what happened was, when Jodi Arias' retrial in the penalty phase was about to start in October 2014, a lot of my, my fan base, they were writing to me through social media saying, listen, you've got to go to Arizona and cover this for us, because the judge wasn't allowing it to be televised. And I thought, well, okay, I'm not at court TV anymore.
Didn't we see her on television? I remember...
At the first trial. I was there for the first trial. This is a retrial, because the first trial deadlocked 8-4 on death. 8 for death. 4.
That's
right. The retrial is a brand new jury, and while their decision is live or die only, they had to hear all the evidence that the first jury heard, because that evidence factored into their decision on whether she should live or die. Even though they had to accept the guilty verdict, they still had to hear the evidence. So it had to get presented all over again, albeit in a truncated form. So everybody wanted to see it again.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I'll go. But a girlfriend of mine in Tennessee put the bug in my ear. She said, launch a website, but make it subscriptions, because you got to pay. I rented a furnished bungalow. I had to rent a car. I had to fly there. I had to eat. I had to maintain my apartment in New York. For about 4 or 5 months.
Right.
So that's what I did. I launched Karas on Crime, and had so many problems because I had a lot of IT issues, and I did it too fast, and there were a lot of problems. It's smooth sailing now, but there's no big trial going on, so I don't have the same traffic that I had at the time. But wow, I was working 7 days a week. I blogged live from the courtroom. I did videos at night. I've got court documents and photos. I was in the media pool. So it was very robust.
I thought Jodi Arias was a lot like Betty Broderick, in the sense that my sense was they were very happy that the men in their lives that betrayed them and abandoned them were dead. That was my sense.
Right. Now, Betty Broderick was in San Diego, and when her husband, a lawyer, prominent lawyer in San Diego,
and she helped him to be a prominent lawyer.
Yes.
Kind of.
Wasn't he a physician turned lawyer? Was he a doctor turned lawyer?
He was a really smart guy. I don't remember.
And then he married a younger woman at his law firm.
Who was very beautiful.
And she
killed them in their bed.
Into their house. Yeah, shot them both in the bed. Said she went in there to kill herself, and somehow was denied parole
and killed
again.
Her ex and his wife.
She was just up for parole again too, but she was just denied.
She's claiming something odd, like somebody's not treating her well. She never revealed any guilt in my mind. I remember seeing her at Oprah.
That's probably why she's not getting out.
She should not get out. I don't think she's somebody who should get out.
She's in her late 60s now. Yeah, that was good. That was an early case of court.
That was an early,
before I joined. Do you know when I joined? Steve Brill had offered me the job. And I was like, wow, okay, but I think I better start sooner rather than later. I had some big cases and investigations. I had a lot of eavesdropping warrants out. I was doing organized crime and labor racketeering investigations. And I said, I can't, leave the office on the eve of trials. I mean, I have to leave now or in a couple of years or whatever. So we set a date. And I walk into my boss's office, Robert Morgenthau. A lot of my followers know this story. I've said it before. And it was May 10th, 1994. And I handed him the letter, and he's like, oh, I've received a lot of resignation letters over the years, but never somebody going into television. Subsequently, other people went into television from the DA's office.
It was a new industry at that point when you started.
So, and I went to Court TV on the 3rd anniversary of the network. It launched July 1st, 1991. I started June 27th, 1994. So I gave 6 weeks notice, gave myself 10 days off. My last day as a DA was June 17th. A friend of mine comes home with me. We're just watching the basketball playoffs and hanging out. I had a little farewell party a few months later. And all of a sudden, this white Ford Bronco comes up on the TV. And he points to the TV and he says, there's your future.
Yeah.
Who knew when I resigned that OJ was going to get arrested, and I was going to start right after OJ got arrested, like 10 days later.
That was good timing, Beth.
It was unbelievable timing.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't get assigned to the trial. Dan Abrams and another reporter we had, Chris and Jeanette Myers, they covered defense prosecution, but I was doing behind the scenes stuff, and I did the B trials because OJ met like 3 days a week. We had a lot of downtime. So, and I was getting, I was earning my stripes. I was learning television.
Yeah.
But
now,
yeah,
how did they find you? That was the first time you appeared on TV. You had no TV training, nothing.
No,
wow.
I had no TV training.
Not
because
obvious at all.
Steve Brill, who started Court TV, is a brilliant man. Has a JD but never practiced law. He's a journalist, a writer. He had a bunch of magazines. One was the National American Lawyer. Right? He had started that. He doesn't own it anymore. And he was meeting with Robert Morgenthau in 1989, asking permission to come inside the DA's office, follow an assistant DA around because he was writing a big piece about the crumbling, he called it fighting crime in a crumbling system. It was the height of the crack epidemic. There was so much violent crime in the city. It was really a hellhole in certain parts of the city. That's when I was earning my stripes. I was a third year assistant DA. Well, it was just serendipitous, but the day Morgenthau said yes, and the day he came to do it, I was selected as the assistant DA for him to follow. Wow. I was answering ready on a trial, and I was in the complaint room picking up new cases, and I was just crazy busy. And he shadowed me, and he wanted to go to lunch, and I looked at him. I said, "Lunch? We don't take lunch. I don't have time to eat, so there's work to do," which he loved, that work ethic. Anyway, he came back, and he decided to change the article, and rather than talk to all kinds of players in the criminal justice system, he just followed me and did it through my eyes. So I was on the cover of American Lawyer. It was a huge article. It was a big deal for my flash in the pan.
Yeah.
And it was a good article. Me aside. But I cemented a relationship with him, and we stayed in touch. And a few years later, he asked me to audition, to be an anchor. We went to HBO Studios on 23rd Street. I had a long day in court. I had the script and like case materials. I was like, okay, now what do I do? He was my guest. We were in a mock studio there. I remember Cynthia McFadden was there, and Fred Graham, and Greg Jarrett, and I did not do so well as an actor. I'd never been in front of a camera. And so then he pulled me aside. He said, maybe you could be one of our reporters. And I was like, not yet. I got some cases I got to do. I want to become a better lawyer. I had only been practicing 4 years at the time. So some years later, 3-4 years later, he called me and he said, "Are you ready now to be a reporter?" And I said, "I think I am."
See, I would have never known that because of your voice. You have a TV voice, and I
People
have
make
to
fun
admit,
of my voice.
Really?
Yeah,
well, they're wrong. What do they know?
What do they know?
But I was really starstruck when I first met you.
Really?
Because I would do Nancy Grace's show, and I would be on set with her, and we would be watching you all the time. So the first time that I met you in person, it was very thrilling for me. Sweet. And I think we did a lot of the Scott Peterson case because that was a popular case with Lacey Peterson, who of course was killed when she was pregnant, and he was a very good-looking guy, and that was
Christmas Eve 2002.
Yeah.
Dumped her body in the San Francisco Bay.
And Lacey's parents were so lovely. They thanked us for the work that we did and felt very supportive, which is very, very nice. Now that was pre-social media. Which is...
Yes, in fact, that summer of the trial, it was 2004. The opening statements were June 1st. I never forgot that. I was just looking at my files recently, and I watched the Dateline the other night. They did a special, sort of a look back and an interview with the prosecutors. Mark Zuckerberg was developing Facebook about a mile from my hotel. I was living in Palo Alto because I lived 6 months at a Sheraton there. I mean, somewhere in Palo Alto. He had a couple of his buddies from college, and they were developing Facebook.
That's amazing.
There was no Twitter. No. I was getting the equivalent of tweets from a producer who was listening in an overflow room, audio only, because there's no camera in the courtroom. And he was sending me the equivalent of more than 140 characters. And I was reading on air, looking at the camera from a BlackBerry. That's how people saw the trial. They think they saw the trial. They didn't see the trial. They were watching me read a BlackBerry. That's
so funny. Now, what about Johnny Cochran? Did you work with him?
Well, I knew Johnny, but I wasn't on the show with him. Nancy Grace came to Court TV a year after I did. I think it was 95. And Steve Brill had seen her on a panel, Bar Association panel. I don't know if it was New York Bar, with Johnny Cochran and a few other people, and she was a little spitfire. And so he thought, oh, this could make, you know,
she still spits, but she still is. She never lost any of that.
That's right. Sure. Yeah, she's a character. So he brought her on, and it was Nancy Grace and Johnny Cochran initially.
I remember meeting Johnny, and I was a little bit biased. I was one of those people who was like, how can he defend OJ? I mean, it was before I really knew as much as I know right now. So I was kind of intent on not wanting to like him. Okay, now wait a minute. So I was like, you know what? I don't like what he did, and you know, then I met him. We were doing Larry King live together. It was one show talking about Scott Peterson. It was Nancy Grace, Janine Pirro, and myself. And Johnny walks in. And he was so charming. I was so blown over. Janine Pirro and I were like, can we get you coffee? Is there anything that you would like?
He was a lovely man.
Oh, just lovely, smart, charming. And I was like, I get it. And I was so glad that I was able to kind of put my bias aside. Well, we have a fun little segment on the show called Keeping It Real, since I'm a therapist. And I have some questions that I want to ask, but they're fun. They're fun questions.
Like my favorite color, you can put me on the spot?
Yeah, exactly.
Things like that.
Okay. What are your 3 biggest life goals right now?
My 3 biggest life goals?
Yeah.
3?
Just 3.
At my age?
All right, pick one.
Okay. Well, first of all,
maybe 2.
I want to, I'll tell you, when I left Court TV after it went off the air, which was June of 2013, well, they still did a couple more trials, but I wasn't there. I just wanted to stay in the genre. But I just want to do long-form storytelling. Okay. That's what I want to do. And I'm still trying to get there. Yeah. I'm doing it, but I'm not there. I want to do long-form storytelling on television.
About court cases or any
story? Into investigations. I'm actually being consulted on some cases now that I can't talk about because they are pending cases where people are coming to me for media consultation as well as legal consultation. So I'm not practicing law, though, although I'm still licensed. And I just, you know, I have a lot of, you know, contacts and, you know, my tentacles are out there, and I really want to do a deep dive.
And you're so great
but
at
I haven't really landed where
can you
I want
do
to
that?
be. So that's my goal, is to still get there.
Okay. And can you do that on your podcast as well?
Yeah, but not I need more resources.
Okay.
Yeah, I can, but I need more resources. Now, my podcast is long-form interviews.
Okay.
I have an interview with, you know, Jeff Ashton. After Casey talked to the Associated Press, I was like, I want Jeff's reaction to this. So, you know, that's one of my interviews. I have one with a prosecutor in Wisconsin who investigated but didn't try, Stephen Avery, a guy who's a cell phone expert, blood spatter expert, the guy who investigated Elvis's death. He's a defense lawyer now in Nashville, but he was at the autopsy, and I wanted to take a look back at Elvis Presley's death. You know, it was 1977 when he died. So I have a lot of different types of, but always criminal stories.
Criminal, and that's what people want to hear, I think.
Yeah, and I'm working with a friend of mine who used to be a Court TV producer, and then he went to Law & Order SVU, where he was a writer for 11 years, working on a long-form podcast, multiple episodes. But it's his, you know, it's his story, and he's doing the writing, and we've been working on that for a year.
Oh,
so I've
fantastic.
been to another state like 4 times doing interviews.
So you'll keep us posted and come back and let us know.
No, I can't talk about that yet either.
Okay.
And another goal is to write a book. I just don't have time.
Okay.
I did lay out a Court TV memoir, and then I had a couple of agents, and I wrote a couple chapters.
Oh.
And I had a couple of agents tell me, we love the book proposal, but every one of your chapters, or most of them, there are whole books written about them. Oh. Because I covered so many big trials, but not all.
Well, what about your personal reactions to each case?
Right. Well, you know, a tell-all book would be a great book, but I'm not burning bridges. I'm not gonna hurt people. I'm not hurting people, but I got stuff I could tell.
I actually came across a tell-all book. If it's not done right, it can turn people off. Yeah. I won't even go there. But
I'd rather write about a crime story.
Yeah. No, I'm going to read it, or you could do a novel.
Well, there is a whole side of me that I don't talk about. I could do a novel. and now we don't have really the time for this, but my mother was severely mentally ill, and she was always attempting suicide. And every time I saw a forensic psychiatrist on the trial, at a trial, I learned more about my childhood.
Isn't that interesting? And
so, it's kind of like, well, there was one agent who wanted me to write a book about my memoir, what I learned about myself through these trials.
I think that would be brilliant.
I think it would be really painful to write. My mother passed away in my arms
I'm sorry.
in 2006. So, but it was, since I was a child.
It may be cathartic.
Might be cathartic, but
we'll circle back on that one. We'll circle back on that.
I mean to talk about that. Okay, what's another one?
What's the worst advice you've ever been given?
Oh my God, the worst advice I've ever been given? You know what? I think that it was a lack of advice. When my mother, God help her, she did the best she could, but she was like, make your own decision, think for yourself. I was a kid, I needed help, I needed guidance. Probably should have gone to medical school. I love the sciences, and I just, I didn't have the encouragement. I didn't have the advice.
You went to law school, so that's pretty good.
You
can always go to medical school now, I guess. You may want to talk to some doctors and see if you still want that. Okay, if someone made a movie about your life, would it be a drama, a comedy, a romantic comedy, an action film, or science fiction?
Holy Toledo, probably drama. There was so much drama. There was so much drama in my life because, I had 2 disabled brothers.
Oh my God, I did not know the things I'm learning.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of
drama.
It was very sad. And they all passed away except for my sister. So it was drama. There was no romantic comedy. Maybe you could take the sadness because there was a lot of sadness and see comedy in it because we did laugh a lot in the house despite the sadness. But I would say it probably would be a drama.
Okay, who would play you?
For it to turn in this direction.
Who would play you?
Who would play me? Who would play me? Years ago, I was told that there was a show on television that was not long-lasting. It came out after the American Lawyer article came out. It was produced, and Sarah Jessica Parker played me. Back then, I had long curly hair, and she did too. And so she comes to mind only because she was Ada Harris, and people say it was like Ada Harris. I have no idea.
Well, if she were blonde, I could see that. I'm sure she'd love to.
I wasn't blonde then. It's because I got old, and the hair turns color.
Well, if she plays you now, she'd have to be blonde.
But I don't know. Beyond that, if she hadn't changed her face, Meg Ryan.
Oh, right. I
love her too.
Meg Ryan back in the day. Well, maybe she'll change it back, and then she can play you. If you could be anyone for one day, who would it be?
Anyone for one day? Anyone, male or female? Oh my God, I have so many people, I admire through life, and I love Alexander Hamilton.
Okay.
I never saw the show. I read Ron Chernow's book.
All right, I heard it's very impressive.
And any of the founding fathers, but not Thomas Jefferson and not John Adams. I'm kind of mad at them.
Okay, but Hamilton,
and not Aaron Burr for killing Hamilton.
Okay, all right.
But there are lots of characters, in history writers. For a day.
You're so deep. I'm thinking I'd be J-Lo. I'd love to see what it's like to just walk in and out of limos and have my hair done all the time.
I would love to live in New York, like 2 centuries ago. Oh my God! When I meditate, today, my brain just went to a city scene from 100 years ago.
Wow.
I don't know why, but I went to tenement housing in Little Italy.
There was no air conditioning then, was there?
It didn't matter. I was there.
You were a brave woman. Maybe in another life.
I feel
like I was a writer in another life. Okay, if you had to pick a new name for yourself, what would it be?
A new name? Alexandra. I always wanted to, after my father.
I
always
like
wanted
that.
to be Alexandra.
I like that.
He was Alex Karas, and he was offered some Major League Baseball contracts out of World War II, which he refused. But he would have been the first Alex Karas in pro ball. The other one was a football player.
I like that. Now, we do need to come to a close, but you are also working. You contributed to a really interesting article in Time Magazine, The Innocent Project.
Yes.
And science.
Yes, I brought an issue up.
Yes, let's show people.
This is it's still on the stand, but you can get it on Amazon. It's a special edition of Time.
And this is really interesting. And this talks about how science and DNA, and talks about how the new science is really helping release people who are in prison.
This is a passion of mine now, is helping the wrongfully convicted, and I think we should all lose sleep at night, knowing that there are innocent people in prison. And it is not that maybe there's a glitch, a technicality, and they shouldn't have been convicted and they deserve a new trial. These are innocent people. That means the real perpetrators out there, the real murderer or rapist or whatever, and there are mistakes. And
false convictions.
92,000 to 100,000 is the estimate.
So get this. It's now. You can get it now
on Amazon.
It's
still on some
You can
stands.
read what Beth has to say. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. And thank you so much for joining us, Beth. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. So much fun having you.
You got me to say things.
That's my job as a therapist. And best of luck on all of your amazing things that you are working on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you next week.